So good morning and welcome to everyone watching at home, and welcome to this edition of our S&D Future of Europe talks. This is in the context of the Conference on the Future of Europe, which is all about listening to citizens' views, getting new ideas, and for us as a group about building a fairer Europe. So our group, the S&D group, is very engaged in the conference process, and we have a dedicated platform on our website, a dedicated debating platform where people can post their ideas. And we also have a Facebook page, Progressives for Europe. And in today's talks, we're going to be focusing on LGBTI plus rights in the EU. So what's the state of play for rights for LGBTI communities in the EU? What are the differences across the EU? And what can we do to reverse the trend of increasing hate speech in Europe? And to give their assessment, we've got two people fighting for equal rights on a daily basis. Firstly, from the S&D group, we're happy to have Marc, MEP and co-chair of the European Parliament's LGBTI intergroup. Marc's also a very active member of the Employment and Social Affairs Committee, as well as the Petitions Committee. And Marc brings experience from the national perspective in Luxembourg as a former member of the Luxembourg Parliament. And we've also able to welcome Camilla Garfias, President of Rainbow Rose. Camilla works for the Federal Railway Company of Austria, and from 2014 to 2016, Camilla was president of the Students' Union at the University of Vienna and later International Secretary of Austrian Socialist Students. Since 2017, she's been active in the Social Democratic LGBTI movement in Austria, SOHO, taking on the role of International Secretary. And Camilla has been president of the Rainbow Rose since 2019. So welcome to you both. And I have just mentioned these two different bodies, Rainbow Rose and LGBTI Intergroup, and people at home might not be familiar with these organizations. So perhaps you can give your experiences of Rainbow Rose, Marc, and talk a little bit about the LGBTI Intergroup, and the same for Camilla.
Okay, hello, Ewan, and hello, everybody, and good morning, Camilla. I'm so happy to see you. Well, Rainbow Rose is a fantastic organization. It's a social democratic LGBTI network. And so members from socialist and social democratic parties all over Europe can participate in this network, and they fight for against any form of discrimination, but they also especially very engaged when it comes to LGBTI rights. They work with civil society, which is very important in the member states, but especially in the countries where the situation is more difficult. They are very, very linked to the activists in that country there. And I think that's so important that they support these initiatives in countries where it's maybe a bit more difficult than in my country or in other countries. So it's a fantastic organization. And I just wanted to add one thing. This year on World Pride in Copenhagen, Rainbow Rose had the biggest delegation of all other parties had a few members, but Rainbow Rose was there with a huge delegation. And I felt so good that I know that when in a parliament you fight for something, that you have people from the party, from the movement, backing you and supporting you. This is something fantastic. So thank you, Camilla, for being such a good president of Rainbow Rose and for motivating our comrades all over Europe to participate.
Well, good morning from my side. Thank you so much for your charming words, Marc, and thank you, Ewan, for inviting me to this event. It's really an honor and a pleasure. I just can mirror what Marc just said. So for us, working with the civil society, but working also with the organizations in the different countries, it is extremely important to have people in the European Parliament, of course in national parliaments as well, but since we are in a European organization, especially in the European Parliament to work with. And the LGBTI intergroup as a group of members of the European Parliament, not just lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, but everyone can be part of the LGBTI intergroup that fights for human rights and that fights for the LGBTIQ+ community. So that's what makes this intergroup so special is that it is full of our community. It is full of representatives of our community from all over Europe, but it is also full of allies who fight side by side with us. And of course, for us as socialist, social democratic and Labour Party members, it is extremely important that the S&D group is represented in it and fights for our rights. And with Marc as the co-chair of the LGBTI intergroup, we have a very strong ally in the European Parliament. And that's what makes the work with the intergroup so special, and especially with you guys.
Well, I'm glad to hear you've got such good experiences of working with each other, because it is so important that MEPs, elected members, are working hand in hand with civil society. So if we're talking about the state of play generally in the EU, in the introduction I mentioned that you were both fighting for equal rights on a daily basis, and I'm kind of wondering if fight is the right word, and why is it a fight? If Marc, if you want to come in there.
Well, I think we have to fight again, because I thought we didn't need to fight again a few years ago. Things seem to go in the same good direction, but now there is a backlash, there's backsliding, and there is a very well internationally organized anti-gender movement, which is anti-feminist, which are anti-LGBTI, and they are very well organized and they are very vocal, and that's why we have to fight back and not let them gain more terrain, as you say in French, in European politics. We see what happens in Poland, we see what happens in Hungary, in Slovenia. There is not a very good development in other countries, and we don't want that. And therefore we have to fight. I say fight back, because we are attacked, and that's when you're attacked, you have to defend yourself. And as an activist, I'm a pacifist, so the word fight sometimes, yes, I have problems with it. But here it's in the sense of activism, where you fight and you defend your rights, and therefore we can talk about a fight too.
Well, I absolutely agree, and I even think, looking at it from a historic background, and as socialists, we tend to do that, to analyze how structures work with one another and why things have evolved the way it have evolved. They have evolved. When we look at how we have achieved rights, especially as Labour Party movements, it has always been through fights. We were always oppressed. Workers' rights were oppressed. Minority rights were oppressed. Migrant and refugee rights were and are oppressed. And we've come to a situation in Europe where our rights are being questioned, where our rights are being taken away, and Hungary and Poland were just some examples, where the situation in a civil society, the way of behaving against our community, but also real attacks, have been growing. And I think that is a clear sign that our fight isn't over, and that we haven't achieved equality yet, that LGBTI youth still have to fear when they come out, that transgender people don't have the medical health they need. So I think, yeah, we're still fighting, and we will have to continue our fight until we really achieve equality and all the rights that we have. And the good thing is that as socialists, looking back in our history, that's what we come from. That's where we come from. That's what we're good at. So I believe that we will win this fight, because what we fight for, it's the real deal, you know. It's the future for all of us. It's a good life, and that's what we want, nothing more.
And if we look back at the past year in particular, I mean, experiences of LGBTI people have been subject to hate crimes and discrimination, particularly in this last year, and it's been on the rise. And earlier this year, the European Parliament declared itself an LGBTIQ freedom zone. And I'm wondering, what does that mean for you? And if you could say what kind of led to this declaration. So Marc, if you'd like to talk about your experience there.
Well, first of all, it was a great moment in the parliament, because 498 members of the 498 members of the parliament voted in favor of declaring the European Union LGBTI freedom zone, and it was reacting to what happened in Poland with the LGBTI free zones. So this is good. This is about allyship. Camilla already mentioned, when we talked about the intergroup, allyship is important. We have 155 members in the intergroup, but in the parliament there is almost 500 members who support LGBTI Europe, with where everybody has the same rights and no exception for LGBTI people. So this was a wonderful vote, and was a very important symbolic act also. And I'm proud of all my colleagues who back us, and it's a good feeling that you're not alone there, that you support it.
I absolutely agree. I think this is such an important motion. It was such an important initiative, and we actually, as Rainbow Rose, took it as a starting point to launch a campaign which is called Love Where I Live, that we worked as Rainbow Rose together with the PES Committee of the Regions, so the Party of the European Socialists group in the Committee of the Regions. launched this campaign, Love Where I Live, which is still ongoing. Short advertisement here, where we encouraged cities, regions, towns to declare themselves freedom zones, to show to their constituents, we love you no matter who you are or who you love. And the really amazing thing was to see how more and more and more cities declared themselves LGBTI freedom zones, such as Lisbon, such as Vienna, my hometown, my home city, but also complete regions in Spain. So we have a lot of official bodies saying we are a freedom zone and we support the LGBTI community. So that was a very, very important event for us. And it was also, of course, to the great collaboration with the European Parliament that made this possible.
If I might come in here, Camilla, it was so fantastic, the action you launched to bring this down on the local level. And it was not only big cities, but in my little country, Luxembourg, it was small municipalities who declared themselves. And I was so happy when on Facebook I saw another village of 1,000 or 1,500 people. The city, the municipal council declared themselves as a LGBTI freedom zone. That was fantastic. So thank you for that wonderful action Rainbow Rose did all over Europe.
Maybe just one additional little, I think that, I mean, since it's still going on, everybody who's watching us, you can still bring it to your local party representatives or to your local representatives to declare the regions, the cities, the towns, freedom zones. You can find on the homepage of Love Where I Live a motion in all the languages in Europe. So you can just download it, and basically, if you need to change a little things, just do it, and then you can send it to your representative so they can bring it into your council. That's still going on. So I'd like to encourage everyone that feels their city and their town needs to be a freedom zone. You can do that, and be sure that our socialist representatives will be in support of you, and we will definitely be there if you need any help.
And yeah, just to follow up on the LGBTI free zones that some of them are still in place in Poland. In the past year, have you spoken to people who've been suffered this kind of repression? Have you had people contacting you either in the Parliament or through Rainbow Rose to talk about their experiences, to say what it's like on the ground?
Camilla, go ahead, and then I come in.
Yeah, of course. I mean, we are in contact with our Polish activists that have told us really, really terrible things, that they were being haunted by police, that they were suffering a lot of discrimination, that the environment, the civil environment was being more and more hostile, that it's been really dangerous. And actually, that was the moment when we were contacted by our activists, that we also contacted Marc and the intergroup to say we want to have a study visit to Poland. Unfortunately, we couldn't go there in the end because of COVID. But there was I think Marc, you can add on that. There was a virtual meeting to speak about that. And one thing that has been giving me a bit of hope actually is that there has been consequences now by the Commission, financial consequences, which has led to some parts of Poland taking back their LGBTI free zones, because of course regions and cities to evolve need the financial support of the European Union. That's one of the largest ways we can influence to have our rights respected and human rights respected, and the European Union needs to use the instruments they have, and money is one of it.
My meetings with the Polish and Hungarian activists, I think that was one of the most heartbreaking moments in my mandate as the co-president of the intergroup. We had a 3-day virtual visit in December 2020 to Poland, but then also last year 2 months ago, I was in Warsaw and I met with the activists. I also hosted a dinner for Hungarian and Polish and Georgian activists during World Pride in Copenhagen. And when you listen to them and when you just want to hug them and say them, we are there, because they are looking towards Europe and they have high expectations in Europe. And it took so long for the Commission to react, but finally things are moving. Camilla mentioned it, so we are very happy about this. But we have to go on. We have to go on fighting for LGBTI rights in Hungary and in Poland. But moreover, for press freedom in that country, for rule of law in those countries. And I'm really proud also that our political group, the SND, we will have a debate next week also in Strasbourg on the rule of law in Poland. We are really the leaders in that debate. We are very strong in that debate, defending rule of law. People like Caterina Barley and Juan Fernando Aguilar, the president of the Libe committee. We are very vocal, and this we need to encourage all the human rights activists, the LGBTI activists in Poland and in Hungary.
Yeah, well, it's good to see that when pressure is applied, it can have, you know, positive consequences. And there's kind of another area where we might need to apply some kind of more pressure, and that's in the Parliament's received lots of petitions about rainbow families and the rights of rainbow families. And you were directly involved in this, Marc. So I wonder if you want to talk about your experience. What were they asking for? What are they petitioning for?
But they're petitioning just to be recognized as same-sex partners when they have, that their same-sex marriages are recognized when they move to another country. For example, a lesbian couple or a gay couple married in Belgium, when they move to a country where it's not recognized, that at least that they have to be recognized. And so the opposants, they say marriage law, family law is national law, but here it's about free movement, and free movement is one of the 4 major principles of the European Union, and therefore we see it from that perspective. And we also put a motion, a resolution in the Parliament, which had a big success, where we called to uphold rainbow families' rights in the European Union. And it's also about parenthood. Imagine a couple, a French lady and a Polish lady married here in Brussels. They have a child, they move to another country where they are not recognized, then there is no more link between the child and the 2 mothers. Isn't that terrible? So we also have to see it from the perspective of the children's rights, and therefore we are fighting for this. And we were happy that President Ursula von der Leyen last year in her State of the Union mentioned, if you're a parent in one country, you have to be a parent in all the countries. And the Socialist Commissioner for Equality, Helena Dalli, has put this also in her LGBTI equality strategy, and they are working on the legislation to have this implemented in the European Union, that if you're a parent in one country, you have to be a parent in all the countries. And we are fighting also to make this broader, that if you're a same-sex couple in one country, you have to be recognized as a same-sex couple in another country.
And Camilla, were you following this debate around rainbow families and the restrictions on their freedom of movement?
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's an ongoing debate, and we've seen progress in some countries where partnership laws were passed, also in countries that are not part of the European Union. In Montenegro, when the partnership law was passed, this was a real success. There was a very high involvement of 2 board members of Rainbow Rose that are working very closely with the Western Balkans. So I'm very happy to have Diana Bakic, who lives in Bosnia and Herzegovina, very active in this matter, to also help these ascending countries to reach laws in the process of coming to the European Union. We also have it, of course, when you look at countries that don't have any partnership laws, where they just aren't recognized, where you don't have legal protection for your relationship. And then you have countries that are a bit farther, they have the civil partnerships, but then you have real equality between marriage and partnerships, or where couples, heterosexual or homosexual or whatsoever, can choose to either be partners or be married. So I think there is a lot of good practice examples that we can follow, and still a long way to go for many countries. But I think we're on a good way, fighting in few countries. Also, another not EU country, but Switzerland has just passed equal rights, an equal rights referendum, and that's a huge step for Switzerland. And I think we can be very proud that also our party was very active fighting for this. And I think that little by little we're getting there, but I think we cannot stop the fight and cannot stop the pressure.
And a lot of these things, I guess, come down to kind of attitudes. And I'll give you details of a poll that we did on our platform. But first of all, I mean, you're obviously both public figures. You're both kind of community leaders. I'm wondering if you think there are enough champions for LGBTI rights in either your country or at the EU level as a whole.
Well, I think maybe I'll just go first, Marc.
Yes, of course.
I think that it has improved a lot. So when I was younger, I remember only one Austrian politician, Ulrike Lunacek, who was a lesbian outed politician in Austria. In Europe, I didn't know any. So that has been much more visible. There has been much more visibility, and there is much more representation. I do think we still have a problem as parties and maybe also as a community. When it comes to representation of transgender members of a community, when it comes to representation of women, of lesbians, when it comes of representation of minority groups. So, and I think that's something we need to work on within our parties. I'm going to be very self-critical in this aspect as well. When we look at Germany, and I'm very, very happy about the results in the elections. I think it was a real success, and it is a deal changer for Europe that the SPD won. But looking at our own organization at SPD Queer, we have now 8 gay representatives and no lesbian and no transgender from our party, which I think is very sad, but I think it's a very good sign that we have that we have gay representatives. But I think that we can be even more diverse, and that's also looking at my own organization in Austria. I think that we are fighting this fight very hard. We now have first female representative of the Viennese branch, and we have transgender representatives in district councils, but it has been a lot of work, and I think that we need to go on with this fight, not just for our representation, but for young people to be able to see themselves. Because when you see someone do something, you can be that person, and we owe it to generations that come after us to be role models to them. And I think that we can improve a bit more, but I'm very happy that we have reached the point where we are at the moment.
Yeah, I agree fully with Camilla. Just personally, when I was first elected as a member of the Luxembourg City Council in 1993, I was out, and I never was hiding my homosexuality, and it wasn't a problem during my whole political career, I must admit. In my country, we have a gay prime minister from the Liberal Party. We had now before for 10 years also a gay vice prime minister from my party. So and many gay members in the parliament. But as Camilla said, not enough lesbians are integrated in our parties or have mandates, and transgender persons. We also have to do something to integrate them in our parties, have them elected, bring them in, and this is, I think, very, very important. There is enough. There is quite a lot of champions also in the European Union. As I said in the intergroup, all those who are not gay or lesbians but who are allies, I think these are champions too. For me, allies are champions too. And this week was coming out there was a coming out day during this week, and I was really proud that the European Parliament, the DG, the General Direction for Personnel, they had a fantastic webinar where they have a unit, Lgbti desk, where people can, if they have problems, they can come out. The European External Action Service made a whole video on how important it is to be out at your workplace, and so the European institutions are, I think, are also good role models. But we need more. We need more women and transgender men and women also joining, especially the many gay politicians.
Well, thank you for being the champions, and hopefully we can increase and change attitudes, because the conference is about engagement. As I said, these series of debates is about the future of Europe, etc. And I mentioned this poll that we conducted on how we change attitudes to LGBTI issues. So I'll read out the results, and maybe you can react to that. So 55% of people said we change attitudes with better education in schools, so 55%. 20% said improve legislation to end discrimination. 15% said what we're just talking about there, more role models in the media and in public life. And then 10% said attitudes change slowly and we have to wait for society to change. So, I mean, 55% saying, over half of people saying we need to start in education, better education. So obviously attitudes start from a young age. So what do you think we can do there?
Well, I think it's very important that we have in all European member states good programs of sexual education and relationship education, and starting from early age, and adapted, of course, to the age. This is very important. And here again, the anti-gender movement I mentioned in the beginning, they are trying to convince some countries that this should not be in the school curricula, that parents should allow. That's a matter of parents. No, it's a matter of public schools, of schools to educate people on their sexuality and on their relationship, and this makes people much stronger also later to fight sexual abuse and to be aware of sexual abuse. I just wanted to make one remark on the 10% who said that society is not ready. I don't believe that society is ready, and a good example is Malta. 10 years ago in Malta, Malta was apparently so conservative, divorce wasn't even allowed. Now Malta is #1 country on the ILGA mapping, which is the International Lesbian and Gay Association. They say Malta has the most progressive law, so it's a question of political will, and the society is ready. Sometimes the politicians are not ready. I really believe in society. I believe in the young people. They are ready.
I agree. I think in most countries society is ready. I especially believe that young generations are much more open, also because they have much more role models, and very simple because they see LGBTI in Netflix series. These representatives and these role models have been very, very important, not just for the community youth, but for generations in general that have been growing up seeing LGBTI relationships and thinking that this is very normal and there's nothing to be afraid of, or there's nothing to hate or to try to push away. I do agree education is important. And I think that this is something that can never end, that for ourselves will never end. I have to educate myself every day, basically, because things change and within our community things change, and people get to come to new to accept new parts of their identities and bring new input into our community. So the community will need to educate themselves ongoing and for the future and for the rest of our future probably. But I do agree with what Marc said. We need to start with a very, very young age. And it's a very simple thing. What stories do you tell? How do you speak to children? Do you say, well, there is only mom and dad? Or do you say, hey, we're going to have a family day, and no matter who your family is? Because I'm not only speaking about representation of LGBT families, but also what about all the people that have only one parent? They are never part of the story that we have of a mom, a dad, a house, and a golden retriever. So we have to be more diverse. Life is diverse. People's reality is diverse. And we need to educate our educators to be able to educate our children. So it's a long line of education. And once you speak honestly about reality, and once you speak and teach about sexuality, about health, about relationships, and also about contraception and everything that's part of growing up, you will have much more knowledge, and with knowledge comes power, and that power we can use to achieve equality, and I think that's very, very important. And then, of course, I agree, to make all of that possible, you need legislative security. You need legislation, you need laws that make all of that possible. And I think that goes hand in hand.
So we're coming just to the end of the discussion today. I'm going to put Marc in the spotlight a little bit, and you're a member of the S&D delegation for the Conference on the Future of Europe. So I wondered if you wanted to say a little bit about your experience so far with the conference process, and as well, Camilla, I don't know how involved you are personally, or otherwise with the conference. But just a final summary of what the conference process is all about for you, for the future of Europe.
Well, the conference is a very good thing in itself. It took a very long time to really start. We lost a year with COVID. I hope it will go on longer than it's foreseen, because it's important to discuss. The citizen panels seem to work very well. Last weekend in Strasbourg, there was also the European Youth event. 5,000 young people were present in Strasbourg. 5,000 were present online. They had debates, and some of these debates will be brought in. There's the digital platform. There's the digital platform of the Commission. There is our S&D digital platform, and it's important that you go on these platforms and bring in your ideas, because they make reports and then they bring it also to the Conference of Future Plenary. I was disappointed a bit that we have working groups, 9 working groups, and they will only start working now this Friday in Strasbourg. So it's a bit late. It's all a bit, you have the feeling it's not well organized. But the good thing is that the citizens panels seem to work very well. And human rights, rule of law, democracy are subjects which are main subjects in this debate. And what is interesting, when you watch a bit the citizens panels, they are very, what I said, they're very advanced on certain issues. So I think they're going to bring us forward with progressive ideas. I have the feeling they want some more social Europe. It's very interesting to listen to these debates or to read the reports of this citizen panel. So it's an exciting process. We have a good S&D team. We are coordinating very well in our group to bring our ideas through. And our main ideas is make Europe more social, fight against poverty, make Europe more equal. These are really our core fights, which we will do in all the 9 working groups in this conference on the future of Europe. It must be a success. We cannot disappoint our European citizens.
Well, let me only add, I think it's a very good initiative. I think it's very important that we have also these talks framing it. I think that we as socialists and social democrats and Labour Party members, we have a vision of how a future could look like. Another future is possible where everyone has the same rights, where we respect our environment, where we respect one another, where there is no poverty and people can live how they want to live. So that's the vision we're bringing into this debate. That's the vision we want to show the European citizens. And I think that that's the most important thing to show. We're an alternative, and we're showing you an alternative world. And we're showing you that this world is possible as long as we fight and work together to achieve it.
That's right, and I guess the work will continue together. And thank you both so much. We've come to the end of it, but thank you both so much for your time. And we will definitely be back with whatever happens. We'll be back with these debates, these online discussions, so that we continue this kind of outreach work with citizens. So thank you again, and yeah, we'll be back. See you later.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Bye.
You for being such a good moderator too and organizing this. Bye.
Yes.
Have a good weekend, guys. Bye-bye.